Hey guys, thanks for clicking on the video. Before we get into it though, a word from our sponsors at Witcher Mutations Medications Incorporated. Are you sick of your boring day job? Worried about knocking a girl up with a child you can't afford? Eager to knock down your local town thug on his ass, or just plain tired of being a little bitch? If so, ask your doctor about Witcher Mutations. Witcher Mutations is the only medication clinically proven to transform you from sad to Chad. But don't take our word for it. See what people like you have to say about Witcher Mutations. Before Witcher Mutations, my life sucked. I had a day job, responsibilities, and even a family. Worst of all, I didn't get any bitches, and I had completely forgotten the smell of blood. But now, my life's great. I walked out on my responsibilities, killed some street toughs, and started talking like a philosopher-like. Because of Witcher Mutations, I'll never be a bitch again. Thank you, Witcher Mutations.
When I tried Witcher Mutations, I imagined that I'd see results so quickly. After just 1 week, I got my monster detecting medallion in the mail. It was that fast. Incidentally, it turns out my wife was a monster. Needless to say, we won't be seeing her around anymore. Thanks, Witcher Mutations!
Witcher Mutations saved my life. Thank you, Witcher Mutations.
So if you're sick of working for a living and behaving like a responsible adult, try Witcher Mutations. Side effects may include sterility, loss of hair color, vertical pupils, depression, lack of interest, loss of sensation, suicidality, death, and even acting like a know-it-all armchair philosopher. So ask your doctor today if Witcher Mutations are right for you. Witcher Mutations, because you don't want to be a bitch. Okay, well, that was odd, but you gotta do what you gotta do to pay the bills. Anyways, thanks for clicking on this video. As I'm sure a lot of you know, Netflix will soon be releasing its The Witcher series, so I thought now would be the perfect time to start building the hype and doing some discussion videos on The Witcher books and games. I've been meaning to read the books for a long time now, but never really got around to it. But now that the TV series is about to drop right around the corner, I figured it would be wise of me to do so. I recently finished off the first book, The Last Wish, and I was seriously caught off guard by how dark it is, so in lieu of doing a regular discussion video, I decided to go over the top 5 darkest moments in the book. Y'all ready for this? Let's get into it. Starting at number 5, we have what I would like to refer to as the fate of the elves in the mountain, from the second to last story in the book, known as The Edge of the World. This story tells the tale of Geralt and Dandelion visiting a mystical wonderland of mountains and valleys, where everything grows in abundance, from flax and cabbage to carrots and hemp. A lot of hemp. Apparently, the smell wards off magic. Who knew? I thought it just attracted hippies and angry parents. Weird. Anyway, unlike most of the Witcher short stories that I've read or played so far, this one was actually pretty lighthearted. Instead of brutally slaughtering some monster that had killed, raped, and pillaged the local villagers, Geralt simply has to chase away one that merely threatens to kill, rape, and pillage the local villagers. A vile creature on the surface, sure, but deep down, he was a warm-hearted little Sylvan, which I guess is kind of like a centaur, but with a ram's head as well. Anyways, Geralt and Dandelion fail in their efforts to chase the beast away, and are instead captured by some local elves that dwell in the nearby mountains, whereupon the elves mercilessly beat Geralt and prepare to kill him. The villagers describe the elves as pompous asses, criminals, and thieves, and it appears as though they were right. It is around the time that Geralt has an arrow pointed between his eyes from a little crossbow that he states something to the effect of, "I pity you, because you've been exiled from your homeland. You're powerless to do anything about it. You feebly struggle on for hundreds of years, and when your time finally does come, rather than being taken by illness and malnutrition, you'll descend from the mountains to die in a blaze of glory that will instead be an absolute slaughter." He says something like that, but with a more Geralt-y voice. Anyways, now, usually in a fantasy series, characters of ordinarily upstanding moral virtue, but who have been pushed into criminal acts out of desperation, are shown some sort of mercy by the author or the main character and are helped out in some way to have a happy ending. Maybe the main character helps them negotiate with the people who hurt them to show that it's just a misunderstanding, or maybe the main character will take up their cause as some kind of personal crusade so as to help them win some allies. Not here, though. Oh no. At the edge of the world, there is no hope. The sun does not shine. Oh no. There is only pain, suffering, and death. Yeah. To put a long story short, the elves are hopelessly outnumbered, outgunned, and malnourished, and sometimes diseased. The humans below view them with skepticism, fear, and hostility, and would not hesitate to kill them out of what they think would be self-defense. Geralt knows that this whole situation is absolutely fucked up, but he won't even bother trying to help them out. He won't even offer them a word of hope. Even the Queen of the Fields, the goddess who is responsible for the incredible fertility of the land, whom the elves absolutely adore, more or less just tells them to piss off until she has time for them later. And before they go, the Elder Elf comes to Geralt and tells him that deep down he agrees with them. He knows that the elves are a pitiful and hopeless race, bound for a slow and painful extinction because of human selfishness. With that, he leaves, and that's the end. There's no happy ending, just some casual foreshadowing of a slow genocide. Nice! I can't wait to look at the next 4. Which brings us to number 4, Verena and Nivellen. Poor Nivellen. He never really had a chance. He was born an ugly, sickly child to a family of brigand leaders and warriors. He was but a youth when his parents died, and the torch to lead the brigands was passed to him. Young and sickly as he was, he could do little to stand up to the whims of the hardened raiders who flocked around him, and so, when urged by his companions to rape the priestess of Coram Ag Terra, he had little choice but to acquiesce. And though he was not a willing participant, he had to bear the consequences for that action. Nivellen's head was transformed into something resembling a dog's, and, strangely enough, after that, he didn't get much by way of visitors or company. Such is the life of a dog person. If only the furry community was around in the Witcherverse, maybe Nivellen wouldn't have been so lonely. But lonely he was, until, after a while, he managed to negotiate a deal whereby he would pay a local peasant to rent out their daughter for a year at a time, and, occasionally, he would actually enjoy their company, and they would enjoy his. That was, at least, until he met Verena. Verena was thought to be a Rusalka, a harmless, if timid variety of non-human that would ordinarily avoid people like the plague. But, since Nivellen was no longer entirely human, maybe it was the dog head that tipped her off, I don't know. She decided to overcome her fears of people and meet with him. The pair of them shared a bond of true love. Nivellen affirmed this to be so, and if he ever found it strange that the disappearances of Verena and the countless slaughter of innocent travelers occurred at around the same times, he never gave any indication of it, which made it all the more saddening when the truth finally came out. Verena was not a Rusalka, she was a fucking Bruxa, a vampiress, and though she loved Nivellen, it was not the human variety of love. Her love was not manifested by cuddling and kisses and fucking, but by mercifully allowing him to live when she drank his blood, and allowing him to become her mind slave in due time. How sweet and tender! Geralt, of course, came round to this conclusion, and so decided to put an end to Verena's deception in order to save Nivellen. But he could not dispose of her before Nivellen arrived on the scene, and when he did so, his sweet love viciously attacked him, sought to kill him, and likely would have succeeded had Nivellen not managed to drive a stake clean through her chest, thus keeping her like a couple feet away from prying open his neck. It was on this stake that Verena died, and in the end, her slaughter actually relieved the curse that had affected Nivellen, but certainly did not cure him of his worldly woes. The story finishes with Nivellen all alone again, ugly, sickly, impoverished, and now without any means to defend himself from the world's horrors. Geralt then rides off, once again trying to decide if he made the right choice. If you think about it, I guess he did, but let's be real, Nivellen is completely fucked. Okay, on to number 3. In the back country of Vizim lived a nobleman named Ostreet, who harbored the deepest of loves for the princess Ada. He hoped dearly to win her affections, but despite his best efforts, the princess has eyes for another. Her brother, King Foltest. Yeah, that was a thing, and they weren't even Targaryen. So, just like anyone who's Fantasy decides that she'd rather fuck her brother than you. Ostreet cursed Foltest, Ada, and her child when he heard she was pregnant, in innocent retaliation by a spurned lover. Pretty normal stuff, except the child then became a Striga, who ate the queen and her attendants, and who, during the course of the next 14 years, would come to make the palace her own dominion and roam the streets at night to hunt her prey. Her people prey. All because dear old dad didn't want to kill his beautiful little girl. Really, it's quite sweet when you think about it. Ostreet never forgave the king for taking Ada from him, though, and so approached Geralt on the night of his Striga hunt, hoping to bribe him to cease his endeavors so that the king might fall out of favor and be removed from court. Rather than accept, Geralt proposed a counter-offer, suggesting that Ostreet shove his purse up his tight little ass. Unwilling to sacrifice his plans for revenge, Ostreet moved to kill the Witcher and is, of course, quickly knocked out and tied up. Let's pause here for a moment and take stock. Yeah, Ostreet isn't a great guy. He did try to bribe Geralt not to kill the Striga, which probably would have resulted in more people dying, and then he tried to kill Geralt when he said no. But does he deserve what comes next? Well, why don't you decide? Back to the story. With Ostreet now subdued, Geralt decides to make a pragmatic decision. Rather than spend the noble's life fruitlessly, why not put it to good use? When Ostreet awakens, he whimpers for his life, and Geralt so lovingly sets him free, but only after he hears the Striga awaken. So Ostreet runs for his life, desperate to escape. Geralt stays behind, letting his bait do the work. That's when Geralt hears a, quote, terrible, quivering, frenzied scream that tore the night, shook the old walls, continued rising and falling, vibrating. And that's the last we hear of Ostreet, whatever, for allowing a monster to roam free and kill dozens of people because it might, on the off chance, be possibly cured. Foltest became the passionate king who saved his daughter. For trying to remove this crazy bastard who kept a monster alive despite it killing dozens, albeit not for that reason, Ostreet becomes monster bait and dinner. What the fuck? He was literally eaten alive by the daughter of the woman he loved. God fucking damn it. Number 2. The Butcher of Blaviken and the Curse of the Black Sun. About 25 years before the current story, the Witcherverse was experiencing their edition of the Salem Witch Trials, where a bunch of kooky old wizards allegedly believed that some sort of prophecy declared that the noble women born on or around, that's fucking convenient, the night of a particular eclipse were cursed and would cause the bloodshed of countless innocents. Naturally, the compassionate wizards shared this information with all the nobles who would listen, and those who did listen likely saw it as what it was, a convenient way to dispose of some unruly or otherwise unwanted pests. Thus commenced the hunt. One wizard, Stregobor, was particularly zealous in his pursuits and not only hunted such women, but also autopsied them. These autopsies confirmed that actually a great many women were in fact cursed, their insides bearing little resemblance to that of a human. But these autopsies also confirmed that a great many more were innocent. Seeing this problem, the compassionate Stregobor called upon his infinite wisdom to summon a solution. Rather than kill them, lock them in towers. That way he didn't have to kill them. They killed themselves instead. Brilliant! In his arduous pursuit to cleanse the world of evil, which happened to manifest as killing little girls, Stregobor came across Renfri, a princess, and decided to fix her up too. But instead of killing her, she escaped his clutches, became a hooker, bandit, thief, murderer, and general vagabond, and continued to survive until she found protection in the hands of a local prince. She, of course, remembered Stregobor's cruelty and decided to try and find revenge. Which brings us to the present day. That is, the day when Geralt became the Butcher of Blaviken. See, Stregobor was holed up in Blaviken, and it wasn't long until Renfri arrived, which happened coincidentally on the same day as Geralt. Geralt discovered that Renfri planned to take the citizens of the peaceful village hostage while they were at a market in order to lure the wizard out and exact her revenge. Not wanting to see innocent villagers die, Geralt decided to put a halt to this before it began. So, Geralt went to meet with the bandits, but when he arrived, Renfri was absent. She was busy attempting to coerce Stregobor to come out peacefully. Hearing this, Geralt revealed to the bandits that he was aware of their plans and intended to put a stop to them by whatever means necessary before they could follow through. The bandits, of course, declined the peaceful solution and took up arms. It was at this point that Geralt could have avoided the slaughter that was to come. He could have said, fine, we'll wait for Renfri to come back and work this out. After all, Renfri was clearly in the right in this whole mess. Certainly, she had teamed up with some less than savory characters and planned to take hostages, but there was little evidence that she actually planned to kill any of them, and the object of her revenge was clearly deserving, having killed dozens of innocent women and girls himself, and having reduced this particular princess to a life of penury, prostitution, and pillaging. But Geralt didn't do that. No, he did quite the opposite. For the second time in The Last Wish, Geralt bore steel against a collection of rabble, far inferior to him in terms of skill, strength, and speed. The result was inevitable. The bandit started by launching a crossbow between his eyes, which he deflected with a sword. Yeah, that probably should have been enough of a warning for them to turn tail, but evidently not, because the 6 bandits decided to rush him and were met with a slashed chest, a slashed temple, an open neck, a leaky hip, and some severed tendons in the legs and arms. A group of 6 peasants, with a bit of a history of crime, no doubt, but certainly nothing remarkable amongst them, were, in the span of about 20 seconds, each reduced to open faucets of blood on a cold stone road, earning Geralt his title as Butcher. Now for number 1, The Tale of Renfri. Some of you might think that this is cheating, since Renfri is pretty much the impetus for Geralt being dubbed the Butcher of Blaviken, but to me, her story and her ending were so uniquely dark and unfortunate that I had to include them as a separate entity altogether. As I mentioned earlier, Renfri was a princess and heir to the throne. If she was a bit unruly, it was understandable, given her youth, position, and the expectations thrust upon her. As a little girl, she knew nothing but luxury. That was until Stregobor and Aridia, her mom, conspired with a huntsman to remove her from the scene. The huntsman took her into the woods, but instead of killing her, he pitied her, and in his infinite mercy, decided only to rape and rob her before setting her free. Following that, she was a homeless peasant with dirty clothes, dirty skin, dirty conscience. She sold herself to anyone for food or money, spent nights in prison, robbed, killed, and at one point was taken hostage by a fellow who would beat her so severely before he rapes her that she could not even move the following day. Even so, she managed to escape her situation, and later conspired to take revenge on the bastard sorcerer who thrust her from her life of comfort into that of despair. Pretty understandable, I should say. Anyways, it was this lust for revenge that brought her to Blaviken looking for Stregobor, and no one else, not looking to harm villagers. She left her crew to see if she could get him out on her own without taking hostages, but was of course denied. So she returned to her crew, and what did she find? She found them there, and over there. They were everywhere, in an array of pieces on a flagstone road, which had newly taken on something of a more crimson hue. Geralt then turned to her, and said that he didn't want to kill her, but he couldn't let her take hostages. At this point, Renfri is fucked. Her crew is dead. Stregobor is locked in his tower, and, having caused quite a ruckus at Blaviken, she probably wasn't going to remain in the local lord's graces for much longer. So, to salvage her pride, she engaged Geralt in single combat. Again, Geralt did not have to kill her. He clearly outclassed her by an order of magnitude similar to that of a fish to a whale, but it did not matter. He sliced her leg open and watched her bleed out slowly on the floor. He literally slept with her the night before, and, as she cried and begged to be held as the warmth drained out of her, saying how cold she felt, the cold shrouded around her, Geralt just looked at her. He just looked and watched as her eyes slowly glazed over. A former princess, cast out by her own mother, repeatedly raped, robbed, beaten, was butchered like an animal by our protagonist for seeking revenge on a sociopathic serial-killing monster. Yeah, that was some pretty dark shit. One might even call it fucked up shit. Alright, well that just about wraps it up, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Let me know in the comments what you thought of the video, The Last Wish, or anything about fantasy in general. Or, I don't even know. Comment about anything. I don't give a shit. Also, unfortunately, I will not be dropping a video next week as I will be on vacation with my family, but I will be back the week after. Hopefully, with higher quality content now, because my job is moving way closer to my house. Anyways, thanks for watching, and be sure to like and subscribe. Catch you later.